Okay, in this rather long video, we're going to be setting up an Ubuntu domain controller. So this video is going to focus primarily on getting the server up and running. We're going to set up a static IP address. We're going to get all the updates done, and we're going to set the time and the time zone correctly. So let's get started. As you can see, we're booting from the ISO image. Now, we had an ISO burning software before installed Rufus. That worked pretty well for the pfSense, and it's going to be used for this software also, the Ubuntu. We can download this from our repository, or we can install it from a download that we got off of the Ubuntu site itself. We'll have a link down below. You can grab that from us. Okay, so after about a minute or two of booting up, you can see we end up at this screen here where it shows just the basics. Do we want to choose a language? Do we want to choose a keyboard? Everything's going to be standard except for this screen here. What we're going to want to do is change this to a manual IP address. We go ahead, change it from DHCP to manual. And we're going to type in the subnet mask of 10.0.0.0/24. As you can see, I'm doing a typo right here. And go back. Get that changed. And that's just going to show which part is the network. That's 10.0.0. And then the address of the machine is 10.0.0.10. Gateway is our firewall, the pfSense, 10.0.0.1. Name servers, going to be, for now, we're going to leave that set for the firewall, 10.0.0.1. Go ahead and click on Save. We'll move on to the next and wait for the applying changes to stop. And we'll click Done when that pops up. There we go. And yes, we want to install the entire operating system on that one disk, virtual disk. And there's not a whole lot left to do for the basic install. I'm going to choose a username. I'm going to choose a username of test. The server name we're going to choose as samba. Username also as test. And password, shh, don't tell anybody, it's password. Yes, we do want to install OpenSSH, and that's the only extra option we're going to do. The OpenSSH is going to allow us to use SSH, a program like PuTTY or something like that that's going to allow us to connect to the server without actually being in front of it. Kind of a good idea to do. So at this point, we're going to do a whole lot of installation right here. We're going to get all the way through to the end, and it's going to do the downloads of updates. Once we get part of the way through that, that's probably going to take a while. We'll go ahead and cancel that and finish up, reboot, and we'll continue on with our updates and setup. We'll see you in just a minute. And we're at the login. You see I typed in the word test. Now I'm typing in my password. And you'll start to see a little bit more junk showing up there, but not a big deal. Now, one thing to do before we move on to the next phase is we definitely want to get all of our updates done. And that's separated into two commands. You have the sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. The update, which is what's running right now, that's where we go out and we find out the list of all the new packages of software that we have installed on the machine versus what's available on the internet. Kind of just checking for updates, not actually performing them yet. So in a minute, when it comes up with the list of software that's done, we'll then do another sudo apt upgrade, grade, and that's going to actually perform the updates. And then we'll move on with everything else. So we finished up at this point with all of our updates. The last step we need to do before we actually start installing the software and getting that configured is we need to take a look at our time. By default, the Ubuntu servers are going to be set up with what's called NTP, Network Time Protocol. And that means it goes out and it syncs up its time with a time clock that's on the internet, super accurate. The reason we have to do that is because we're going to be using something called Kerberos. And Kerberos is very picky about time. There can be no more than, I think it's about 6 minutes difference between all the machines on the network before things break. So the time and date, as you can see, is correct. Well, you can't tell that, but I can. So it's correct. But we're in UTC, the Universal Time Zone. And what we need to do is set that for the proper time zone so that all of our dates and times are correct. So what we need to do is show a list of available time zones and then modify it so that we choose the correct one. In my case, it's the Los Angeles, America, Los Angeles. You'll see how we do that here in just a moment. And you can see how that we have the time zone is UTC. We want to get rid of that. And so what we're going to do is show a list of all the time zones that are available. And so time date CTL list time zones is going to actually show us all the choices we have for time zones. We're going to scroll through, press the space bar, and that's going to take us to the next screen. And we're looking for America, Los Angeles, just to make sure it's going to be in there. And we keep going. Do we have a space, or do we have an underscore or a dash? You can see at the top it's America, Los Angeles with a capital L, capital A, and an underscore. So now we just need to make sure to set that time zone. And then we're pretty much set. We're good to go. Our time's going to be correct, and we're going to be in the correct time zone. We're ready to move on with the rest of our software install. There you go. You can see we've got the correct time zone. So we're good to go, and we are ready to move on with our installation of our Samba software. We'll see you in the next one.